Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you are new here, welcome. I did not get to all of my holiday baking over the weekend, so I'm going to spend some time today and get to the rest of my holiday baking. We host at our house every year for Christmas, so I like to have a variety of different desserts, but I like to do a large cookie platter. So I did a lot of cookies over the weekend. I am going to add in a couple more. I needed to do some chocolate chip cookies because that is a staple, I think, for Christmas time. So I did a huge batch of chocolate chip cookies. I kind of made them a little smaller this year than I usually do, just to kind of stretch them a little further, but I think this was like a double or a triple batch. I did quite a bit of them. We have a big platter for when everybody comes over for Christmas. We bring a platter of cookies for Christmas Eve whenever we go to a family member's house and spend some time with them on Christmas Eve. And then, of course, we need some cookies to set out for Santa on Christmas Eve. So I made a huge batch for people to munch on and then to have available for all these cookie platters and for Santa. If you're curious what other cookies I include on my Christmas platters, you can go back to my last video. I believe it was majority of cookies, but we did Grinch cookies, snickerdoodles, peanut butter blossoms, and today we will also be doing, they're not cookies, but they were a huge hit for Thanksgiving, the meringue mushrooms. So I'm going to be doing that in today's video and just kind of getting all of our odds and ends put together for Christmas and Christmas Eve. Here's the cookies when they were all done. I put them in a large Tupperware dish, and as you can tell, it is half gone at this point. This was the next day. My kids kept getting into them, and then my husband also brought a smaller Tupperware dish with a variety of cookies in it for his work too. So he wanted to share with the guys at the shop, and so that is why there's so many gone already. I wanted to share this footage that I got of the fog. I could not believe how foggy it has been the last few days, and it's been kind of rainy. We have not really had any snow yet, but we've had quite a bit of rain, and it is supposed to be like 75 on Christmas. I can't even believe it's going to be so warm again. But I'm curious, where are you located and what is the temperature going to be on Christmas for you? I can't believe it is going to be so warm on Christmas. It has been cold here for quite a while, so it's interesting that it's warm again. I have moved on to the next item that we are baking. Now, this is something that I have made a bunch of different times, but I kind of make it in a variety of different ways on my channel, so it might look new, but I promise you it is absolutely not. So I am going to be doing what I am referring to as a Nutella Christmas tree. It's kind of like a pastry that you layer, and I'm going to be putting Nutella in it. If you remember from not too long ago, I posted a cinnamon, it was like a cinnamon roll snowflake, and it's basically just a cinnamon roll that instead of rolling it, I just kind of twisted it into the shape of a snowflake. It was super popular. A lot of people really liked it. It was very cute. I loved how it turned out. But for Christmas, for like a dessert, I like doing a Nutella version of that and making it into the shape of a Christmas tree. So I'm getting the dough going for that now because it will take a little bit of time to rise. So I'm getting the dough going and I will let that rise in a warm spot then. I'm jumping around a little bit because I'm trying to be a little strategic with how I am doing things in the kitchen. So while my dough is rising, I am putting it in this greased bowl. I'll cover it and I'll put it in a warm spot. You'll actually see me place it in the oven. The oven is off, but I feel like it rises a little quicker when you put it in the oven, just because my kitchen is kind of cold. So I have that going, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to clean the bowl, bowl so I can use it for the meringue mushrooms. As you can see, I had a little mishap whenever I was putting in the flour for the last bit of flour. I didn't turn the machine off and so the flour kind of went everywhere. It took a little bit of time to get it off the camera and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I cleaned that up, and before I start the meringue mushrooms, I figured it would be a good time to start dinner. I really at this point am not quite sure what I want to do with dinner. I knew that I had some chicken breast thawed, so I put 2 chicken breasts into the crock pot, and then I'm doing some cream of chicken soup. I end up adding a little bit of milk, about half a can to each of these cans, so like 1 whole can of milk. I mix it in just to kind of get the remnants of the cream of chicken out of the can. I put that in, and then I add in some parsley and chicken broth. And I think halfway through this, I kind of decided, okay, we'll do like a chicken and noodles or chicken and dumplings type of thing. I ultimately decided to do chicken and dumplings, but like I said, at this point, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I just knew that I was going to be busy, and so it'd be better if I got dinner going in the crock pot, so then later on we would have dinner and I wouldn't have to put much thought into it. So that is what I did. That is all I added, and I'm getting the crock pot going for that. Now, if you're interested in any of today's recipes, you can find those down below in the description box. The only one that I never include are the chocolate chip cookies. And I always state this in my videos, but it is a recipe that my daughter and we have kind of always done together since she was very, very little, like maybe a toddler. And it's kind of been our special thing. We are the only 2 that know the recipe for the chocolate chip cookies, so we kind of just keep that to ourselves. But other than that, you can find the other recipes from today's video down below in the description box. Now that I have dinner going in the crock pot and my dough is still rising, I am going to start on the meringue mushrooms. Now, these I was very scared of, and I talked about that in my last video. I didn't show all of it because I was just very focused on trying to get it right. They turned out great. They were a huge hit. The only thing is they are very tedious, and you can't really make other things at the same time. That's why I'm kind of skipping around and trying to plan accordingly. They have very little ingredients, and like I said, they're pretty easy once you get started, but you have to plan because they cook at a very low temperature for an hour, and then you have to keep them in the oven for another hour, just with the door ajar. So it is a little tedious, but they are so worth it if you actually try it. I added the egg whites into the mixer with vanilla and almond extract, and then I am slowly mixing in a couple tablespoons of sugar at a time. I mix them very, very well in between each time I add it in to make sure that it's fully incorporated and dissolved. Once we have all the ingredients incorporated, it does take several minutes to get it to whip and make stiff peaks. So while that is going, I wanted to take a moment to thank today's video sponsor, Tree. Tree has a large variety of vibrant sensory toys that encourage creativity and tactile joy. They have a variety of sensory products from swings, balance boards, stepping stones, play tents, and much more that is available on their site. One thing that I noticed about their product, it is amazing quality. It is so well put together. It is very sturdy, and it is such nice quality. I was really happy with that. As a homeschooling mama, sometimes it can be a little hard to keep kids interested in reading and all the different things because especially during the winter time, it is colder and they're cooped up at home. So I knew that this swing would be such a great addition. The boys can sit in it, they can read, they can draw. They are always antsy, so they absolutely loved being able to play with this swing and add it to their room. Their products make such great gifts, not only for the holidays, but all year round. They are currently running a Christmas sale on their website, but they were kind enough to share with me a code that I can share with you. So you can find my code down below. I'll also pop it up here on the screen, and you will receive an additional 20% off of your order at outtree.com. A huge thank you to TheWeYUMS for sponsoring this portion of today's video, and a big thank you to you too for supporting me when I have sponsored content. Okay, so the meringue is done. It has formed stiff, shiny peaks, and I'm going to, I showed this clip. I thought about removing it because I have this baggie in this bowl. Last time I had piping bags. This time I completely forgot that I needed those. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this gallon-sized baggie. And so I put, I think, like all of it into this baggie. And then I realized once I took it out that it is one of those bags that have like the weird corners. I think they're like meant to kind of be able to stand up by themselves. So it was a little wonky, and I'm like, I can't do that. So I ended up then squeezing portions of that bag into smaller ones that I had that had like the normal corners. So anyway, I kept that in there. So if you have like the normal gallon size ones with the normal corners, you could use that, and it would probably be a lot easier than what I had to do, but this works just fine. So I have it in a smaller sandwich bag, and I'm squeezing out the meringue onto this foil lined pan. And it is important that it is foil lined because it will stick to it, and it's just a lot easier to get them off. So I'm making the little stems for the mushrooms, and by doing that you kind of just press down onto the foil and lightly bring it up. So that is what I'm doing. I'm making a bajillion of the stems of the mushrooms. And then once I get those done, I'll put them off to the side. I didn't want to put them in the oven until I had the caps done, only because I was worried about them having different cook times. With them being so tedious and taking at least 2 hours in the oven, I wanted to make sure that they went in at the exact same time. Now, I am not a perfectionist with this at all, and I find that even when they're not perfect, you'll see some are laying down, some are different shapes. That in the end really does not matter, and it makes for a really great mushroom because they are not all the same. So I have those done. I put those off to the side. Now I'm going to be doing the mushroom tops. And so you just kind of, I rotate it a little bit as I'm squeezing it out to make more of a mushroom cap. Now you'll notice when you're doing that, it does make a little point at the top. And so what you'll do is I have a little bowl sitting over to the side, and that is filled with water. Once I'm done with this whole tray, I will dip my finger in that and just kind of rub it over the top, so then it smooths out the point. Now, if you are not really familiar with working with meringue, it can feel a little scary. It still is for me, even though I've done it a couple times now, it still feels scary. So a couple little tips, and I'm honestly taking a little bit of a risk doing this these days, but I really didn't have much of a choice to wait much longer. So I'm taking the risk and hoping that it turns out. But what I'm referring to is, if you remember, I showed the fog in the beginning of the video. I mentioned the weather. It is humid here, and there is a lot of moisture in the air, and meringue does not work well with that. So I was really unsure how this was going to turn out. I didn't know if they were going to not turn out, because you need them to really dry out in the oven, and then you need to store them in an airtight, like, Tupperware container. So I, at this point, was unsure if it was actually going to work out or not. And so if you end up making these, just be really aware. You don't want to do it on a day that it's raining or a day that it's really humid. You want to do it on a colder, dry day. That way it has time to fully dry out, and they don't end up turning into kind of a gooey, I explain it kind of like a marshmallow. It's like a hard, melty-y marshmallow. I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, that is just kind of how they turn out if they don't dry out properly. So now I have all of my mushroom tops done, and I always have leftovers, so I just take the leftovers and do like a little dollop We will dip them into chocolate once they are all dried out. We dip the mushroom stems, and then that's how we attach them to the caps. But I also like taking these little dollops, and I'll dip the bottom of them into the chocolate as well. And it adds a really nice touch. And then you can, of course, just kind of put a little bit of cocoa on them when they're all done. I don't know what it is, but it is like the perfect Christmas treat. Now that the meringue is in the oven, I've actually timed this to where I had them bake at 225 for an hour, and then I'm going to now start making the Nutella Christmas trees. So I have about an hour to make the Nutella Christmas trees, and then the meringues will be done. So like I said, I'm kind of planning it strategically, and that's why you see me jumping around a little bit. I think these Nutella Christmas trees turned out so cute, and I feel like as I'm doing this, it does not look very cute. So just a warning, stay until the end because it turns out adorable. I have the dough divided into 3 different pieces. I did do the snowflakes into 4, but I felt like I didn't need to do that with these. So I just did 3 different pieces, and I kneaded out each little dough ball to get out like air pockets and stuff like that. Now I'm going to roll them out, and I'm trying to do somewhat of an oblong shape, just to kind of get to be able to cut out like a Christmas tree, if you know what I mean. So they're kind of taller, so I didn't want it like round like we did the snowflakes. I wanted them more tall and kind of wider in the middle, so then they would come to the bottom of the Christmas tree. And then you can do a variety of different fillings for this. I tend to do usually like a cinnamon one. That one goes over really well, but I had a family member specifically ask me for a Nutella one. So I am doing just a hazelnut spread in the middle of each layer. And that is all I'm going to do. You can put like chocolate chips in it. I do find it's a little harder to twist and actually like form a Christmas tree if you have dry ingredients or like bigger ingredients like chocolate chips. So if you're using chocolate chips, I would suggest the mini ones for sure. I also feel like the hazelnut layer looks really thick here, and it is absolutely not. I should have done a close-up so you could tell. It is really a pretty thin layer. I wanted no patches, but I wanted it to be kind of thin because we're going to have 2 different layers of the hazelnut spread in between these. And another little tip is to have it on the parchment paper, so then you can move it off to the side pretty easily, be able to roll out another thing of dough, and then you can bring it right back over and put the dough over top. I feel like it is just really easy for transport, and then once it's all rolled out and all layered, you can just put it straight onto the baking sheet and bake and have very easy cleanup too. So definitely use the parchment paper if you have some. Again, I am not a perfectionist about this. They are all different shapes and sizes, but I do try to be somewhat of the correct size. So I went over and I grabbed the other one that was on the parchment paper just to kind of get a size reference to make sure I was covering all of the Nutella pieces. Once I figure out the correct size, I am folding it over just to make it a little easier to pull off of this surface. I've noticed that if I use too much flour, it is not easy to roll out, but if you don't have a little bit of flour, it's too hard to pick up. So you have to find that good medium, and because this was the middle layer, there are a couple little holes, but I was okay with that. I kind of just smushed them together, and you can't really tell once it's done at all. So that is the second layer of dough. So I'm putting on another thin layer of the Nutella spread, and then I'll top it with another piece of dough, and then we'll go ahead and cut it and twist it into the shape of a Christmas tree. This is the day before Christmas Eve, so like my husband likes to call it Christmas Eve Eve. It always confuses my boys when he says that. But anyway, he always calls it Christmas Eve Eve. And if your week is like mine, it is pretty hectic. I was on and off the phone almost all day, like several days this week. So that's what you're seeing here is my phone was ringing, so I went to go answer it. And, you know, the good thing about that is I can kind of still keep going and, you know, be able to answer the phone too. But it is so hectic around here, and I'm so grateful that we decided not to do school. We are on winter break this week, so that definitely makes it a little easier to get all of this stuff done. Okay, so I am cutting a Christmas tree shape into this dough, and if you're doing this, reserve all those little pieces, put those aside, because you can cut little shapes and stuff like that. And if you're wondering, like, what am I doing, I'm trying to figure it out, because I I originally wanted the trunk portion to be the top of the tree, but there was a hole in it, and one that I did not fix. So I ended up switching it around, and I had that the trunk portion. Again, you reserve all the pieces, because one, you can do little designs, like I'll be adding some stars to the tree. You can use those and just twist them up and put them on another sheet. And like that's actually what I did with whatever I had left over after the stars, because then my family enjoyed little treats, and we were able to bring this tree then to Christmas Eve. So it ended up working out. They were able to try it and enjoy little snippets of it, but we were ultimately able to bring this to the family's house for Christmas Eve. So you'll see I cut about 1-inch strips, 1.5, you know, however you want to do it, and however many you want to have. And then you just twist them in one direction and kind of pinch the ends to hold them together. And you just do that the entire way around. I did do for the trunk, because it was a little thicker, I cut it in half and I twisted each little portion, and then at the end I pinched it together to make like one shorter little portion. So I did do that, and you'll kind of have to work with it just a little bit to make sure that they kind of stay and they're not all wonky. But as they are in the oven, they'll rise a little bit and they form the perfect little Christmas tree. So don't worry about being too perfect about it. I think I forgot to mention that I did not cut up the middle of the tree at all. So that is all one piece. And that way, whenever it's fully baked, people can just kind of pull away from the middle and it comes off in little pieces, and you don't have to worry about cutting it or anything like that. One thing I really like adding to these is a little bit of cream or milk. So I'm brushing that on now just to every little piece and every surface level that is showing. It adds a really nice golden touch to it, and it just is a really wonderful touch. If you have like a bigger sugar, what are they called? Coating sugar, baking sugar, I don't know what it is, but it's a little bigger than normal sugar. You can also add that. I decided not to do that because I will be adding powdered sugar once it's all baked. I did not double check the camera at this point, and I thought I was showing you what I was doing. So I will tell you what I'm doing since you cannot see. I just used a cookie cutter and I cut out stars to place on the top of the tree and then kind of throughout the tree. So I used whatever remnants I had and I cut out little stars. If you have other little shapes, you could use those too. Again, I'm brushing them with a little bit of cream, and then I will bake those with the tree, and I'll dust those with powdered sugar and then put those on top. See what I mean? It came out so cute. I love it. I was so excited about it. So this is how they turned out. And like I said, you don't have to be perfect with it because it turns out in the end. And it is such a cute little centerpiece for your Christmas table, but also it's a really delicious dessert. Okay, so we are skipping right on back to the meringue, and I'm discussing this with my daughter because, again, it is a tedious thing, and so we're working as a team. She always likes to help me with these meringue mushrooms. She likes being in the kitchen, but she has certain things that she really favors, and this was one of them. So she melted this chocolate, and I just use a milk chocolate, like a dipping chocolate. So we use that, we melt it in this bowl, and then you don't really have to be too quick. At least mine does not set too quickly. So I'm showing you this is how it looks. You just dip we have better luck dipping the cap into it and then pressing the stem into the chocolate. And then you kind of lay it on a piece of parchment paper. So she went to go get the parchment paper that we can lay all of them on, and they can kind of set that way. So that is what I'm trying to do here. Another tip that I feel like is a lot easier is I'll show you here in just a moment. I take the part of the stem that is kind of pointy, and I make a very, very slight hole in the mushroom cap before I put the chocolate on. I feel like that makes a little bit of a difference and it helps it stick a little better. So I very, very lightly, as you can see here, I just kind of twist it into it and create a small hole, and then and you press very, very lightly, and then you'll dip the cap into the chocolate, and then you just press the stem into that little hole with the chocolate. And then you continue that same process for a bajillion mushrooms that I have set and made. We've moved on to just the little dollops. We've went through all of our mushrooms and created all of those. So I have those set to the side for the chocolate to harden. And then in the meantime, am working on the little dollops. I just do the bottom of them, and then I kind of position them in a way to where I can easily pick them off of the parchment paper. Usually you can set it right down on the chocolate and it doesn't make much of a difference, but sometimes I try to mix it up a little bit just to make sure that I'll be able to get them off of the parchment paper nice and neatly. I ended up running out of time to show you what my finished product looked like today. So I'm going to include in just a moment the footage from Thanksgiving when I made these, because I felt like it came out pretty good. You can see what they look like, the finished product. So this is what they end up turning out like. We just dust them with a little bit of cocoa once the chocolate sets, and you put them in an airtight container, and they really don't last long because everybody devoured these really quickly. It makes a whole bunch, and it is such a cute little thing. I would love, I think next year, to send little baskets or buckets of these out for the holidays, like with my Christmas tin, because they are so cute and they go over so well with a lot of different people. And we are jumping around for, I promise you, the very last time. This is just about the end of my video, but I decided on doing dumplings, and I took it a step further with making it super easy. And I am using just biscuits that I'm cutting up into small little dumpling pieces, and then I'll put those in. I like adding dumplings in about an hour before it's done. So this, I have an hour and 21 minutes, I think it says, on the crock pot. So I'm dicing these up. I'll put them in, give them a really good mix, and let them cook the remainder of the time before I serve them. I have had other people comment like how they make dumplings. A lot of times I like to mix it up. So sometimes I'll just do homemade noodles. Sometimes I will do the egg noodles from the freezer. I will make dumplings, or I'll just use the canned biscuits. I've never used tortillas, but I've heard from numerous people that you can cut those up and they make great dumplings too. So that is something that I will eventually have to add. This was a very last minute thing, but I'm glad that I ended up throwing this in the crock pot, because after spending all day in the kitchen, it was really nice to pretty much have dinner done in the evening. So here is what the dumplings look like before they've cooked for an hour. So you give them a really good stir, and then you'll have to stir them again before you serve them. But I have about an hour and 17 minutes left. And then here is how they looked after that amount of time. They were nice and bubbly and oh so delicious. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you have a wonderful holiday if you celebrate, and I hope you have a wonderful day and rest of your week, but I'll see you in the next one. Bye.